and I can ask you this question. I just need to know how we're going to give them access to the videos. Are you putting that in the Dropbox the Google Drive? Are we doing that on it? So I just when
I will
before we
send
head out.
an email with I will send an email with the links.
Okay.
So we can have, everybody can have the links and it will be better. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How are you? Oh my goodness, I see you. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? And
No,
Peppy and Sarah, how are you?
I
Hi,
love
Maria.
it.
Hi, excuse me. I have to say, I don't know if you know, but in Illinois, Maria is the new executive director of Home to Page. So yes,
Awesome.
kudos to you.
Yay. That's
You
awesome.
deserve it. This is awesome. Yes, you deserve it, and this is great. Very great news. So, guys, I'm so excited that you all are here. Oh my goodness, I know. I thought maybe we're gonna have less people, but in fact, we have more, and I keep accepting more people today. And you need to join me with emojis. I hope you already update your Zoom link because we have the reactions for the emojis, and we need to say thank you so much,
Oh, look at you.
Laura,
So
for doing this bonus training, because in that way our housing counselors and our agencies are going to have the best information that they need to have a very quality control in their agencies. Have you enjoyed the information that for the last two sessions? Have you started practicing something? Yes, no, yeah, you haven't seen it. Okay.
small steps, right?
Yes.
Small steps, big wins. That's what it is. It's all about small steps.
So
All right.
Laura, just do it because I'm just going to start joining more people in the room, and
Okay.
you can just give us the presentation. Thank you so much.
Regina, that's so good. Regina said I created a training for pulling credit reports using Scribe. What? Look at you with those resources. Yes, I love it. Oh my gosh, you can see how much that makes me happy. I can't even stop smiling. I love it. I love it when you guys walk out of these trainings and put it to use immediately. Because let me say that I know how hard that is. Right? It's hard. You come in here, you got to learn, and then you got to go back out in the real world. And then you're like, okay, where do I squeeze this in? So I get that. All right. So we don't have much time today, and I want to make sure we get you what I promised. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you guys were even willing to come back for a bonus session. It just broke my heart that we were like running out of time. And I'm like, there's just no way. We have to find a way to win. So we need the link to the resources, Bibian. I think she also emailed it last week. I'm not 100% sure. I know it came to me, but maybe it didn't go to the whole list, but I felt like it did. But just in case, Bibian, if you don't mind just dropping the Google Drive in the chat. We haven't made any changes. We haven't put anything new in there because everything that I had for you was already in that folder for you, but she'll go ahead and put it in. I found out that I can schedule appointments in Microsoft 3. Yes, using bookings. Exactly. Yes, that's a great one. I love that, Sarah. You know, I actually have a friend that uses that. So I was thinking about that last week and I was like, oh, we probably should have talked about that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So if you guys have Microsoft 360, bookings is one of the apps that you can turn on and it will do booking for you. So that's another great tool. So thank you for bringing that forward and putting that in front of us. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to go. So we stopped last week with a conversation and breakouts about some of the things that you were doing to help us do internal monitoring. Okay. So I'm hoping that you guys were able to take some really good notes with each other. We did a very, very quick debrief on that. So what I want to do is just kind of continue in this conversation, if you will, and just talk about some things that you want to think about, or maybe some pieces that'll help you elevate in this space. Because I would imagine that many of us are doing some of these things, but we could tighten up that, just kind of like when you have screws in different places and they start kind of, getting a little loose. So we can just do some things to kind of tighten that up so it stays together. So three things here. When we're setting up an internal monitoring system, number one, we really just want to make sure we're really clear on the actual objective. And we might do different monitoring for different purposes. And so that's what I mean by setting up clear objectives. Now, in the resource book that I put together, okay, that's in the Google Drive, I actually put a list of different types of objectives that you might think about. And so I'll show some examples of that. And then you will think about metrics as well. Like, what is it you're trying to measure? And then looking at regular review. So we're going to look at this in these 3 sections. So here's some examples of some of those objectives. Maybe it's, I want to make sure that myself and my team are doing everything possible. And that is required of us just to make sure we're in compliance with regulatory compliance with HUD and RESPA and all the other funders that we report to. We want to make sure that we're doing all the pieces and parts and we're checking all the boxes, right? Maybe an objective is just maintaining service quality. Maybe you've mastered the regulatory things, the compliance, you got your files all in order, everything's good. But maybe you just want to know, are we doing the best that we can to serve our clients? How are we doing with them, helping them achieve their outcomes? What maybe are there some pieces that might be falling through the cracks, like follow-up, right? What can we do different? Can we try some new strategies? Identifying mitigating risk. And let me just specifically give you an example of this, which I'm going to shamelessly plug because Housing Action Illinois is going to be bringing a new training to you guys. I know some of you may have been in this when I taught this with Michigan's group, secure spaces, making sure we're mitigating and managing risk and our safety, managing our safety in housing counseling. So that's not just safety, like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in this world. We know that, right? So we need to think about safety in that aspect, but also and how we're sharing information, collecting information. So we had some kind of conversations around that, but the data that we collect and making sure we're doing everything we can to manage and mitigate any risk or exposure, right, for our agency. Because the last thing we want to do is find ourselves in a lawsuit or a data breach. That could be a challenge, right? So maybe that's something you want to look for, and then just enhancing overall client satisfaction. So those are natural organic referrals back into your organization. So as I mentioned, which we're not going to look at right here, but just I mentioned that we do have in the workbook. So make sure you definitely download that. There's a list of different types of objectives and some thoughts around that to think about what that might look like and how that translates into monitoring and doing those internal monitoring reviews. Now I want to talk about performance metrics. Okay. So there's the different types of things that you want to be measuring. And so it's not just one lane, it's multiple lanes. And you don't have to do all of this all the time, but you would definitely want to touch it at some point. So you might break it down into a quarterly. So maybe one quarter we focus on client satisfaction. Another quarter, we're going to check on regulations and funders and making sure we're hitting all those. And then maybe another quarter, I'm going to do an internal audit to see where we are with maybe outcomes and follow up and those kinds of things. So you can kind of really pick and choose how you want to lay this out. So I'm going to look at some different examples and different metrics that you will want to think about and how you'll want to measure those. Okay. So client satisfaction and outcomes. Obviously, not only do we want our clients to achieve their goals and the reasons that they came into our doors, we also want them to be happy with the results, right? And also we want to learn if they didn't achieve a result, what was the barrier? What is there something that we could have done different that could have helped them achieve that? Okay. And maybe it's just access to services. Maybe it's technology. Maybe it's not. I mean, I love technology. You guys know that, but it's not for everybody, right? Not everybody's there right now. And maybe one day they will be, but right now they're not. So, number one, what is your satisfaction rate? Are you getting a high rating? Are you measuring? Are you asking people, on a scale 1 to 5 or on a scale 1 to 10, what their satisfaction is in receiving services and the services they provided or were provided? And maybe even rating the counselor that they're working with, because that's important for you as a manager to know how your counselor is doing, right? I know we know our people are good, but are we having good relations with our clients too? Because how many of you guys know, put a 5 in the chat, we all have different personalities, all right? We all have different personalities. And I might have an amazing counselor who is highly skilled, but maybe that personality might not be jiving with certain clients. And that's okay. That means we just need to be mindful of those things. Net promoter score. This is a outcome that you might want to measure. This means what's the client's likelihood to recommend you and your organization to their friends and family? Because that's free marketing. And who doesn't want free marketing? I want free marketing, right? So when we establish that rapport and we establish that connection, we want people to come into those doors. We want them to be, we don't want to be the best kept secret. That is not a badge of honor. We got to get rid of that. We're not the best kept secret. We don't want to be the best kept secret. So we want people to talk about us. We want people to share positive things about us. Our client retention rate. So I think for the most part, let me know, true or false. Let me know in the chat, true or false. I feel like for the most part, we're okay with getting people in the doors. Is that true or false for you guys? I just want to know. I feel like based on my connections and relationships that I have with a lot of the organizations that I work with, getting people in is not the challenge. It's keeping people in the pipeline or making sure they don't fall through the cracks, right? So I think we really have to do some internal monitoring and looking at what each one of our team members, or if it's just a team of one, maybe it's just us, what are we doing? Are we doing enough based on the conversations we've had from this training, right? And then are we consistent? Because can everyone just put consistent in the chat? Here's what I have learned about myself, and I know this is still a muscle that I'm still building. I'm going to be honest, because life gets in the way. I'm a team of one, okay? So trust me when I tell you I understand, and I was in this field. And I used to do all of it myself before I was able to get funding to hire my own team. But before that, I was a team of one. So when I tell you I get the pain of being small but mighty, yay, we're small but mighty, it's a challenge, right? And you wear too many hats. So, but we've got to be real with ourselves and say, okay, am I doing enough? Am I being consistent? Because I might show up, but am I staying in front of my audience? Am I still connecting with them? Am I doing all my follow-up things that I should be doing that we talked about in this training? So those are some of those metrics that you're going to want to look at. Service delivery, average duration of the client is in your pipeline. This is important. We need to know, because this is also going to change program policies and procedures. So one of the things that I'll just speak to this, when we did financial capability coaching, I knew based on my own experience doing them, on average, how long a client should be in a pipeline for that type of service, because I did it for so many years. But if I saw, and I did have this, once I started expanding and hiring people, I started seeing some of my counselors would have people in our pipeline for a year. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't need somebody in our pipeline for a year for financial capability. What are we doing with them? So it's really important to understand what that average duration is. So that can be one, a best practice for your organization, but also measure, are we allowing people to hang on longer than they should? Because I did ask you guys this last week. How many of you guys know clients will clutch on you a little tighter if you let them, right? And so we want to be mindful of that and what that means in terms of changes and shifts that we want to make. Client attendance and follow-up rates, I talked about that earlier. Action plan progress. How are we measuring that, right? I know we have a client management system, but let's be honest, not all our client management systems really give us a pathway for that. And that's why I like that roadmap that we talked about last week, so that we can really see the progress. And here's what I would do. If I was using this, it's not a tool I used when I was a manager in this counseling field, but if I was managing a team today, this is what I would want to see. I'd want my counselors to come back and give me a summary of where my people are and how that navigator or that roadmap is translating into action. So I'd want to hear from them on if we meet weekly or every other week, whatever that, week meeting looks like with my team, I'd want to hear how, I need some numbers. Give me a, rough ballpark. What percent of our clients are in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5? You see, by having that roadmap and having stages, and I know those stages, I now know where my clients are in my pipeline. Do you see how that even makes it easier for you to measure? Let me know, yes or no. Do you understand how now? No, it's not my action plan tool that HUD requires me to use. I'm going to use that, right? We're going to put that in CMS. But by having that roadmap and having stages, milestones, and action steps within that, I now can see as an agency where our clients are in the pipeline. Why is that important? Data equals dollars. Guess what? Funders care about that. So when I can say, out of 100% of our clients that are pre-purchase, 20% of them are in stage 1, which means they're identifying barriers into their home ownership journey, and we're working through that. 10% are in this stage, and I can tell them what those stages are. And then I can use that data to translate success rate, right? Because we took somebody from this and we can say where they are in each stage. And that's what funders want to know. And also lenders. So if we have a lending partnership, because lenders can pay for our services, there are some things that we have to work around with RESPA. We have to be careful. We're not getting kickbacks. We're not doing it in that way. But if we do present a client who's gone through a counseling program and then they do go with a lender, not pushed, but they do choose a lender, a partnering lender, that lender can pay for your counseling services. That is allowed. Okay. And so again, data equals dollars. So these are things that we want to think about even at a funding level as well. All right, counselor performance. So obviously, I'm hoping that you guys do reviews with your team every year, an annual review. And when we not only do we want to do that, but I think it's important that we're checking in with our team. I'm sure you guys communicate with them. I don't want to assume, but I'm going to say I believe that you guys would want to meet with them. But if we're not doing that, we'll talk about what that looks like here in a few minutes. But here's the thing: are we as management? This is for my managers out there. Are we monitoring the time that they're spending from case to case on average? Okay. Are we looking at how much time they're spending on an intake file, how much they're spending on, the follow-up file, the next steps? And are we spending too much time? Because I will tell you, and I don't like to micromanage. So let me also say this. I hate talking about these kinds of things because I don't want people to feel like I'm a micromanager, because I'm not. And at the same time, we have a responsibility as a manager to make sure that our team is not being not efficient with the time that they have in a day, right? And we don't want them to get burnt out either. We need to protect them from getting burnout, because how many of you guys, I'm just curious, put a 7 in the chat if you've ever lost somebody in your office because they got burnt out. And maybe you've experienced burnout. Okay. If you've hung out with me enough, you know that one of the reasons I left my organization was because I was genuinely burnt out. I didn't know that's what it was, but I learned that after the fact. I was genuinely burnt out and I just couldn't function anymore. It makes me emotional when I still think about it, because I loved that job and I loved my people, but I couldn't function anymore. And I think it makes me emotional because I'm so passionate about it, because I don't want to see that happen to other people. You guys have incredibly talented people working for you. So we've got to monitor their performance, how much time they're spending on things. Are they being efficient? Are they being supported? Do they have the knowledge, the skills, the training, the development that they need to do their job well? And so I can't stay here too long, but I'm very passionate about this because I want us to make sure as managers, we're protecting our people and taking good care of them. I made a lot of mistakes when I was a manager. I've learned a lot in the process. And then I also realized I didn't get that support the way I needed it too. And so that created problems for me. When we look at performance, how many clients are in their pipeline? How many open files do they still have? Are they not closing files out? Are they keeping them there too long? Or are they shutting them out for faster than they should? Are they doing their due diligence to really serve the client all the way through? Are they entering all their data points and note documentation? I mentioned last week how I had a counselor who worked for me who, I don't know if I did, I feel like I mentioned this, but did not put stuff in the client management system. And I didn't find out until I was doing an exit interview. So this was a mistake that I made as a manager by not doing an internal monitor, because I trusted my people to do their job, but I learned the hard way. And then I had to really do some serious cleanup on aisle 12, let me tell you. So it was not a fun experience, but I'm a firm believer that if anybody walks out your door, that somebody should be, or someone calls out sick, anybody should be able to go into that system and pick up that file and work that file, because they have all the information they need to work that file. So there should be a summary of that client. And that if I walk in and I had, like, let's say Regina and I were working together and she's like, Laura, I got a client meeting, but I'm too not well, I can't come in. I don't need to cancel on that client. I can still take that appointment and serve that client, right? Because Regina's done her job and making sure all those data points are there. The note documentation is there. So I should be able to log into that client management system and pick up right where Regina left off. I'm a firm believer in that. And if we don't have that type of system in place, that's where I want you guys to grow and elevate. Because if anybody either calls out or they leave your office, you do not want to be in a situation where you're having to start from ground zero with every single client. That's not a good look. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I talked about those. All right. The next thing here is financial performance. What is our cost per client? Are we measuring how much money is coming in? I know we look at those dollars as a management, right? But are we looking at how much time we're spending, what we're providing, and that cost per client? And if you're charging for some of your service, which some of us do, on some services we can charge for, are you getting the correct return on the investment? And what I mean by that, are you charging enough to cover your cost? That's what I mean by that. Okay. And then what percentage of your funding is being utilized. This is another thing. So here's another mistake. And I don't know if we could have done anything different. This was probably one of the hardest pieces when I was in that space. This is back when we had NFMC money. And I don't know if any of you guys experienced that. We were offered a lot more money than we could ever pull down. I don't know if anybody ever experienced that. Put a me in the chat if you had that same experience. But we did. We had a lot of money that we left on the table, and it was very frustrating because we needed money to support our organization, right? But we just were struggling sometimes to get people in the door or get people. I mean, there was moments of struggle there, and you don't want to not utilize the opportunity to continue that support. So thank God I'm in good company. I'm not the only one, right? So, but that was a challenge. And in some cases, you guys still might be challenged in that. So that's something we want to look at. What is causing that challenge in our organization, and what could we do differently? Are there some opportunities where we can, again, tighten those screws up and tighten up the ship so that we can make our workflows a little bit more efficient and faster or easier, and make sure that people are getting the services that we're here to offer? All right. And then the other one is community. What type of community outreach? Another thing, if you guys, again, if you've hung out with me long enough, I say this a lot because I know I've had a lot of you in my other trainings. So sometimes I feel like you hear me say this a lot, but I'm a big stickler on marketing. This. Okay. How many of you guys got my marketing email for this training and you're like, wow, and you felt the pain point, you felt a stir. I'm like, I got to be in this training. How many of you got that? Me, right? Let me see those me's. And so you can see that the marketing that I do is very different than a lot of marketing that we do in our industry. I'm just going to keep it 100. And that is because I have learned. I'm not perfect. Okay. I'm still mastering that skill. I'm learning a lot, but it is different because what I've learned, and I did not do this when I was at the university. Okay. I didn't. Okay. So I was able to get out of the crazy, take a deep breath, and then learn. Because I couldn't do it when I was there. There was just too much going on. That's why I'm so passionate about outreach and how we go about it. And that's why I personally made it my mission to create opportunities to make marketing easier for you all, because I know what it's like to be in your shoes and figure out, where the heck am I going to fit this in? Where do I fit this in, Laura? I don't even have time to eat lunch sometimes. I know, Regina, I'll never forget that time you told me you had like 15 appointments in one day. And I'm like, what? No, I'll never forget that, Regina. Right. But the truth is, we are super swamped. So we need to think about we know this is important. To me, this is like the equivalent when we get those clients say, Laura, I believe saving money is important, but I can't afford to. And I feel like one of your little myths that y'all believe is you guys believe in marketing, but you don't have the time to. And I know that's like one of the things that I see. And I love that you've made that change. I'm so thankful that you listen, because I love you and I want to see your face always in this industry. I don't want you going anywhere because you get burnt out. But the truth of the matter is, we've got to think about, what are we doing with marketing? Are we measuring our marketing efforts? Are we getting a return on our investment? Are people opening our emails? Are people responding to our emails? Are they coming into the doors? Are they responding to our text messages? Are they responding to our flyers that we put out there? Are we getting bang for our buck? Are we utilizing marketing channels that are no cost and low cost, right? Because there are low cost marketing opportunities out there. So making sure that if we're doing these marketing efforts, we're measuring that and we're seeing that translate into the services, that we provide, and we're seeing a return on that investment. So we definitely want to make sure with our team that we're in our whole operations when it comes to counseling in general. Again, there's lots of other pieces and parts in our organization. I'm just focusing on counseling in this training, that we do regular reviews. So you could determine the frequency. It could be a monthly thing. It could be a quarterly thing. I don't know that I would go past 2 times a year, because I don't know that I would go to an annual level. That might be too long because a lot happens in 12 months. I personally think a nice sweet spot is quarterly. If monthly feels a little too much for you guys, I think a sweet spot is quarterly, like just, picking something that you want to measure on a quarterly basis. And again, it may turn into you only do it once a year, but you're doing some level of internal monitoring on a quarterly basis. Okay. So set up a consistent schedule, establish your measurable criteria based on some of the things that I've already mentioned here, and then use the checklists that are provided by HUD or create your own. So there is a checklist, the audit review checklist that HUD uses, which is valid until 2026. You can go in that folder, that Google Drive. I put it in there for you guys. They may update it again a little bit based on the new handbook, but I did put the audit checklist in there. So if you've not seen that, or you've not experienced that, or you haven't seen it in a while, definitely check out their checklist, because that's a great place to start. Because that's where we have to, number one, answer to them and what we're doing, right? And then running reports. You can use your CMS, if you have a good CMS, to run reports to help you do those reviews. And then compare your performance, or what you're seeing, or what your measurements are telling you, compare that to best practices and benchmarks. Okay. So as we are in training and we hear from each other, or you learn things and from different trainers or myself, what are those benchmarks we're giving you? So for example, and Regina and I were just chit-chatting about this, right? She had too many appointments in one day, and the benchmark is no more than 4. I mean, 3 is really that sweet spot. We shouldn't really have more than 3 counseling appointments a day. That's really the piece. You can stretch it to 4 depending on, I'd probably do maybe 3 30-minute in an hour, and in one hour, that's okay. But just be mindful, that's a benchmark. And so if I'm monitoring my team and I'm seeing that they're spending 5 hours in counseling each day, that's too much time, because there's no time left for them to do the administrative stuff, the other things that they have to do, or the follow-up, or their action plan items for the client. So you've got to, again, go back to block scheduling in that situation. But what are those benchmarks? What are we hearing? Go back to the national industry standards. There's benchmarks outlined there, right? And so stay informed with training and updates, so you can help yourself measure those benchmarks. Here are some tools that you can check out to help you with monitoring, and these are broken into categories. So if you guys do project management, or you're working as a team on some things, here are some project management tools. I was trying to think about how I would use project management from a counseling level. You could do some of that, like if you're trying to do some monitoring. So you create a project management board with a checklist for things to do, and then the counselor or the individual can go in there and check off, okay, I've done this. Yep, I did this. Or maybe it's an onboarding thing when you're doing some training with a new counselor. You have a project management board that's already created. And so every time you have someone you're training, they have to go through that whole board to be in compliance with your process. So using a project management board just for program policies and procedures would be a great tool for that. And you can use Trello. That one's free. They're all of these have what I call the free 99 version, and then they have the pay 99, right? So we take advantage of the free 99. And then, if we have to do the pay 99 and we feel like it's worth it, then we do that, right? Last year I had our branches start an audit Go binder based on I love that, Sarah. That's a great idea, right? See, one thing I like, and what really screams to me in that comment, and this is a big thing for me, and I've always been this way, I like systems and processes. You hear me probably say that a lot in training too. Anytime you can create a system that people can follow and replicate, that's always going to save you time, money, and it's going to make it a lot easier for people to comply. Systems and processes. So that's why also project management, like a tool like Trello, is very helpful, because you can create some of your systems and processes so it's outlined there, and they can keep it in front of them to see that they're on track. Okay. Customer relationship management. Again, we have a client management system. The challenge is, and I was actually talking to my best friend, Esmeralda Thornton, who is my queen for client management systems. She's been doing that for a minute. And I think when we all got started with client management systems, we were just desperate for a tool that would allow us to do our 9902. Can I get an amen in the chat? Like, if it just let me do the 9902, I was good with it. But life has changed. We are no longer in that era. We now need a client management system that can do a lot more than just collect 9902 data. Okay. So if you are married to your client management system and it doesn't do all those other things that we've been talking about in this training, you can look at a customer relationship management tool. Some of you have been talking about Salesforce. I know a lot of organizations have been using Salesforce. HubSpot is another one, and Caseworthy. Caseworthy is actually a client management system, but it's also based on a customer relationship management platform. I think Salesforce and Caseworthy both operate that way. So again, here's my challenge to those of you who do not have a client management system that is doing a lot of the things that we've talked about in this quality control training. I hope you are listening and you're thinking, I probably need to take a step back and say, do we need to consider shifting out of that? I know that's a big jump. I get it. Trust me. I feel the pressure rising because that's a big shift. But anytime we do something new, anytime we're evolving and going to that next level, there is always going to be work in the front. There's always going to be more work in the front. But here's the thing, when you invest that time in the front, it will be worth it in the long run. Ardelia, I'm not sure if Caseworthy is cloud-based. I've not been in their system to play around with it. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it is. I don't know that it's something you download to your computer, but I don't know the system well. So my best advice would be to go, Housing Action Illinois actually has it in their CMS on their list. There might be some indications on that for you there on there, because they basically vetted that. That's one of the ones they vetted. And then you can check out their website, and you could probably, if it's not answered on that website, maybe check it out there. Okay. I apologize. I don't know too much about them because I don't use them for my business, but I did notice that it was a customer relationship management tool that is also a client management system that's been approved by HUD. Yeah. Okay. Team communications. Okay. How many of you guys, anybody using Slack, put a 1 in the chat? Anybody using Microsoft Teams to communicate with your team, put a 2, or Zoom Workspace, put a 3. I'm just curious. Are you using these tools to communicate? So this is another tool that you can use to how expedite. So I see a lot of 2s and 3. I didn't see too many 1s, but that is a tool. Slack. Thank you, Vivian. Just put the Housing Action Illinois guide in there too. But this is another thing we can do. And I know that sometimes, so again, here's something I teach even in my social media marketing stuff that I do. Anything that requires constant communication, I want you to block schedule some of that, because that can kind of cause you to do rabbit trails and squirrel, right? So you got to be careful and how distracting some of those tools can be too, right? We want to use them and get efficiency out of them, but we don't want them to slow us down at the same time. So one thing as a manager, be mindful of how you can create, some boundaries for your team and give them guidance on, best practices for them to use it. So I believe there's, just like with my email. So that's why one thing I'm definitely really big on is I check email in the morning. I check it at right around lunchtime, and I check it before I walk out the door. Sometimes I'll do it sporadic, but it's really, I have a very strict system, because if not, I'll get lost in the weeds in email and never get into work. Okay. So, and the same thing, I want to encourage you guys to think about team communications in that way. Now, in the resource guide that I put together, again, it's in there. It's called Enhanced Quality Control. It's the resources workbook that's in the title. There is a checklist in there for performance review for your housing counseling program. So there's already a checklist that I've just started for you. It's not all there. It's not perfected. Again, this is the first time we're doing this training. Over time, we'll probably perfect it, but I've already started some of the work for you. So take that and go and build off of that. Okay. All right. Here's my question in the chat. Do you conduct client evaluations? I would like to think that most of you do, but here's the question I really want to know. How often are you doing evaluations? If it's months, is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? I'd like to know. Monthly, quarterly, annually, or maybe even immediately after a program. Maybe it's immediately after the counseling session. How are you guys doing evaluations? Let me know over in the chat. What does that look like for you guys? So I'm going to let you guys continue to put that there. Okay. So not consistently. Okay. Good question. Okay. Maybe we're not doing evaluations like we should. Not, and this is a judgment-free zone. So let me just neutralize. I wasn't sure. I feel like we've been having lots more conversations about this, but I know when I first started in consulting, I didn't see a lot of this in our industry. So I come from Extension, where we evaluate everything all the time. Everything we do, every time a client comes in our door, we evaluate, it feels like. And then we do semi-annual evaluations and annual evaluations. So I was doing a lot of evaluations. So to me, it was just like second nature. But I do think that this is something that may be still getting kind of overlooked. Okay. So this is good. This is good feedback. So this is I'm glad that you guys are here. So this is something we need to talk about, right? We need to be doing evaluation. How can we report data to our funders if we don't have certain data, right? People want to, when somebody's interested in investing in your program, they want to know that you can do what you say you can do. So In other words, let me give you some examples. I remember when I was doing my reporting, I could tell a funder what percent of my clients that if one before they came into the doors, where they were with their financial journey, and when they left my doors, where they were with their financial journey. I could tell how many of them didn't have a budget and have a budget. I could tell them how many were doing a budget and sticking to their budget. I could tell them how many started with no savings and had savings. I could tell them those who had a credit score at this level and then when their credit score was at another level. I can measure that because I was constantly evaluating these things. We had to, our organization required this. It wasn't even an option, right? And so you didn't know that these were questions you can ask or didn't know what questions to ask. I love that. So here's the thing. I've given you some questions to ask because guess what? There's an example evaluation in your resource guide. So I've given you a start. All right. So so definitely check that out. But you know, maybe it's through surveys like SurveyMonkey. You can use Google Form, which is free. By the way, Google Form is super easy to put together. And if you're not super, if you're like, oh, but Laura, I'm not that techie. Okay, I got you. Go to YouTube. YouTube. So Google's my first best friend, and then YouTube is my second best friend. So I first will Google, and then I'll go to YouTube and say how to use Google Forms, and I will find a YouTube video that'll teach me how to. Okay. So those are my two best friends in my my work. But yeah, so if you're not familiar with how to use certain tools, you know, find a YouTube video that'll walk you step by step. Listen, I was teaching a training a couple months ago, and I'm like, there's got to be a way to automate giving people certifications for their CEUs, and I don't have to do these manually. And guess what I did? I figured it out with Google Forms, and I watched a YouTube video, and it showed me how to do it, and it was super easy. So anytime I don't know how to do something, this is what I do. Microsoft Forms, Ardelia put in there. So if you guys already have that, that could be another tool. Anything you guys can do that can set it up very easy, very user friendly. That's important to get that feedback. And so you can do pre-test, you can do a pre-evaluation. So when your clients come in the door, have them do some like you can do it doesn't have to be long either. It literally doesn't take more than 2 minutes for people to complete a lot of these evaluations. It's just we're not giving them the opportunity. But do you budget? Do you have a budget? How often are you sticking to your budget? These are the same questions that I'm going to ask at the end. I'm going to ask in the beginning. I want to know where they were when they came into my doors. And then I want to know where they are when they leave my doors. And here's what I'm going to be able to say. 80, like, let's just say 40% said I was doing a budget prior to counseling. And when they walked out the door, 98% are doing a budget and sticking to it. That's a data. That is data. That is when I go to Wells Fargo and say, I want you to fund my financial capability program. And here are some of the results that I'm seeing. I'm a good investment. And that's what you want to be, right? That's what I mean by data means dollars. Because when you can show that your program has impact with that evaluation, it is going to turn into money that is going to sustain your organization. Okay. Everyone that comes in our doors completes a pre-application to learn if there are other assistants. Yeah. And that's a great way to start that, right? I would just encourage you to maybe even you can make this a part of your intake. Bradley put, we have QR codes. I love that. You can do there are free QR code generators. And if you use Canva, okay, because y'all know I'm a Canva queen. That's my favorite tool in the whole wide world. Canva will auto-generate QR codes for you. So there's an app that you go into their little apps and you put QR code and you put the link in there and it'll auto-populate a QR code for you. So if you don't know how to do all that, just go into Canva, create any kind of document, and then go into there's like a little sideboard that says apps. Click on apps, search for QR code. It'll show you which app, and all you gotta do is drop the link in and it'll auto-populate. I know it's the best thing since sliced bread, right, Miss Laura? Love that. All right. Another thing you could consider doing is having an advisory group with your clients. So it's like a focus group where they're going to give you feedback. Here's what worked really well for me. Here's what I would like to see different. Here's how I feel like would have been better for me. So especially as we shift into new things, this is where we could get a group of our people together and get their feedback. How could we have helped you better? How could we have made this more efficient? How could we have made this easier? How comfortable are you with technology or these types of technology? Just so that we can learn from that and elevate and make things more streamlined in what we do. And then considering doing an exit, a follow-up or an exit interview. So not only do we want to get that immediate information, but then following up with them 3 to 6 months after they've exited our pipeline, are you still doing it? And that's what the post evaluation looks like. So since going to counseling, are you still sticking to your budget? Since going to counseling, are you still saving money? Since going to counseling, are you still working on your debt? Like whatever those indicators are, that's what you want to measure. Again, I gave you an example. And if you want more examples, I know other organizations have them, but you can always email me and I can give you some more guidance on that. Maybe we need to do a training on evaluations. Maybe that's something that would be valuable. I've never even thought about that, but maybe we should think about maybe doing an evaluate. Hope you're writing that down, Bibby, and that might be good for the new fiscal year. How many of you guys would be interested in a training on how to do evaluations? Put a 10 in the chat. Let's just do a quick little poll here. Put a 10 if that's you're like, yes, I need a training on how to do evaluations better. Okay. All right, Vivian, write it down. I feel like we're going to have to develop that one for the new fiscal year. All right. So identifying areas for improvement. So once we've done some evaluations, then we want to look at that. And that's what's going to help us determine what is our internal audit telling us? What are we learning? What are our strengths? What are those weaknesses? And what do we need to do about them? Conduct root cause analysis, maybe understanding what's causing that so that we can, again, address it, assigning responsibilities to the right people, and then creating timelines for when we want those changes to and how we want to roll those changes out and when we want to see them happen. Okay. As you heard me say in the beginning, small steps, right? We don't want to run out and try to jump in the deep end of the swimming pool and try to learn how to swim. That's not what we're here for. I don't want anybody to get lost in that. But what we want to do is think about, and I'm sure, and let me just show of hands or put a 3 in the chat. How many of you guys are thinking, oh my gosh, Laura, I have quite the checklist of things that I need to change after this training? Right? I know, Jill, I saw your facial expression. Jill goes, yeah, I do. Right. So here's the thing. That's great. It's not a bad thing, but you're going to need to prioritize that, because if you try to go and do everything, you're going to get overwhelmed, and overwhelm will get you paralysis. Overwhelm will stop you right in your tracks, and then nothing will get done, right? A heavy lift, do not let this be a heavy lift. I want you to start small. Pick the thing that you think that maybe sometimes it's the easiest thing you can get done. You know, it's like when we do debt strategies, right? Sometimes when we help people pay off their lowest balance first, that gives them the momentum to just really get on track and start paying off that debt. And that's why they'll stay on the plan versus highest interest first, right? So you may have something that's a higher priority, but maybe you just need to get a couple of small things done just so you get that momentum and move into change, right? All right. So there are 2 processes that I'm going to talk about that you can utilize to help you step into change. So the first one is the PDCA cycle. The PDCA cycle is basically plan, do. This is cycle. Yeah, it's supposed to be plan, do. I don't know why it says study there. It's supposed to be complete and act, so that's not, I'm sorry, check and act. I'm not sure why there's a typo there, but I apologize about that. Please write this down because this is a test question. It's a test question. It's plan. Actually, let me just give it to you right here. Boom. There it is. Screenshot that. You're going to need that for the test. So I don't want anybody missing this on the test. It's plan, do, check, and act. Plan, do, check, and act. Yeah, that's a test question. So I don't want anybody not to get their CEUs. So plan, do, check, and act. So basically this is a framework that you can use. So you plan, identify the opportunities that need to be improved, or plan whatever needs to change. And then develop a detailed plan with specific objectives and the metrics that you want to use to measure your success. Then you want to get into action. That's where your do phase comes in. So then you start implementing the change on a small scale. We're not going to run out the door and jump in the deep end. We're going to start small. I always think of it like if you're drinking whole milk and you want to get to skim milk, you don't go from whole milk to skim milk. That doesn't work. Who the heck is going to do that? You're going to go from thick, like nice substance to water. I mean, that's how it's going to feel, right? You step into change, you go to 2%. So we're going to step down into change, right? So you're going to start small, collect your data, start looking at things and start monitoring it. Then you want to check your data. Okay. I guess they use study as another way because you're looking into it, but you're looking at your data, you're looking at the information that you're collecting, you're learning from, here's what we're seeing, here are the changes that we're seeing happen. Is it being impactful? Here's an example. We just created a policies and procedures on program changes. Are we seeing those impacts with one counselor to the next? Are we seeing improvements? Are they feeling more efficient? Are they seeing an increase in follow-up with their clients because they're implementing a policies and procedure, right? And then if the change was successful, we're going to implement that on a large scale. So we're going to take action. If it wasn't successful, then we're going to go back to the cycle, plan, do, and check until we get to a success that we want to implement on a larger scale. Does this make sense? What I mean? So plan, do, check is very small. You're going to take those small steps. It's kind of like investing in a small little, a little bit of risk to see if you get a little return. And then once you know you've got some return, then you're really going to put some money into it because it's really working for you. Okay. So here's an example of what this might look like. Let's say you want to improve your client intake process. So the plan part would be identify delays in the client intake, develop a new streamlined intake form. Maybe it's on your line or online on your website, or a new streamlined process. Then you want to implement that intake collection method. In this case, online, maybe using client management system, because now you have an awesome client management system that will do this for you. Then as you're starting to implement, clients are using it, they're creating their own portal, they're doing all of that. You want to gather data on their clients' understanding for completion, the time they're taking to complete it, the full completion. Are we getting all the documents? Are we getting everything we need? And how is that working? Once we know it's working, then we can go into full throttle mode, right? The new process is reducing intake processing time. Roll it out into your program policies and procedures. Okay. So does this make sense how this framework can help you start thinking about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4? Any questions on this? Ideally, will this help you take that heavy lift and simplify the process maybe a little bit better? I hope so. All right. There's another example in here, but I'm not gonna go over that, because I definitely want to make sure that and I put these in your book, so, and you guys have the website. I mean the PowerPoint deck. So here's your little test question, right? Which one of these is not a key component? Plan, do, communicate, and act. I think hopefully it's glaring for you guys, because we know it's plan, do, check, and act, right? Awesome. You guys are putting those answers in the chat. So thanks guys for doing that. So we know C is it's not communicate, it's check. All right. So the Kaizen approach is another one. It's a Japanese term used focusing on continuous increment improvement. So this might be a better framework for some of just kind of how our brain is wired. Pick one that works best for you. But this one is also 4 phases, but it's in a numerical. So number 1, you want to identify the areas that you want to improve or improvement opportunities. Number 2, we involve everybody. So everybody on the team has a role. It's not just one person, 2 people. It's anybody on your team is going to be involved in the process. Even if their role is small, we're still going to involve them, because we want everybody to help support the change that needs to take place. Implement small changes. And then once you start seeing those results, the small changes, you want to standardize those changes for the good of the order. So let's look at how this would look. Let's say you want to improve your client appointment scheduling. So 1, you want to identify the the opportunity as clients are experiencing maybe long wait times for appointments, or they're not hearing from our people at all, right? So we want to involve everyone. Let's ask the team, what's going on? Why is this not working? Why are we falling through the cracks? So you're getting everybody involved because you're getting everybody's input. Then based on that feedback and that information, let's say you decide as a collective, we're going to introduce an online booking system like Calendly or Booking from Microsoft or Acuity, whatever, or the CMS, right? The client management system. And then we introduce this on a small scale. So we don't run out and use it with all of our clients. We do it with some of our clients. And then we try to see, is there a difference between the manual process that we've been doing that we feel is not working versus this new system? And then once we figure out if it works, then we scale that success and celebrate the win and implement it organization wide. Okay. How many of you guys feel like having that, either one of these frameworks will help make implementing change and monitoring a little bit easier? Put a 5 in the chat. Let me know if that feels like okay, I feel like this could help us. Okay. So I see those 5s. Awesome. All right. So best practice for continuous improvement: meet regularly with your people, encourage them to provide feedback, create a safe space for them to talk, provide transparent updates. Here's what's going on. I mean, here's what's working. Here's what's not working. Here's where here's some strengths. Here's some weaknesses. Be real and honest with your people, but also create a space for them to give feedback. And maybe again, use other communication channels. Share what you're seeing in the metrics when you're doing these measurements. Share with your team. Okay. Here are the numbers. Here's how many people are doing this. Here many people are doing that. Here's how many people are happy with what we're doing. We have some people that are not, and here's the feedback we're getting. What can we do different? Right. So again, we're in this conversation. We're sharing the results of this internal monitoring that we're doing within our organization. And then making sure that we're on time with our reporting by creating a system and a process, a policy of how that should go, right? So what are the deadlines? Making sure everyone's aware of them, making sure that's probably documented in an email form or in notes from a meeting. making sure that everyone understands how that data has to be entered and when it has to be entered, and making sure that it's available. So whoever goes in to pull those reports, it's available for those reports to be pulled. So here's an example of creating a reporting calendar. HUD 9902 is quarterly. So when should everything be ready for me to go in there and pull it? The 15th of the month following the quarter, so that it can go in there and get it done. And then who's responsible for that? That's the program manager. So depending on how you guys set up a calendar for your agency with deadlines will be based on, and also who's going to do it will help everybody know what's going on so that we're all in compliance on the quality control itself. All right. Fostering a culture of continuous improvement within your team. As I mentioned, have an open door policy. Also create a space for them to have anonymous feedback. So if they don't want to necessarily put their name on it, but they want to give feedback, can we create an opportunity for them to provide feedback without getting hurt and offended, right? But creating that space so to say, you know what? We need to hear what they have to say. We need to give them that space. We need to let them express themselves. Especially, let me tell you, a big thing is for my program managers, when you have people that are going to training, some of you are in this space right now, and that I may be talking about you. You go into a training and you go back to your office and you're like, I love these ideas, but how can I get my program manager on board? Right? It's a challenge. And I hear this all the time. So for all my managers, create a safe space for your people to say, listen, I know this is how we've been doing this for the last 20, 30 years, but could we consider maybe a new way? And would you be open to hearing how that might work? Okay. So create that space for them to be able to provide that information, because nothing's more frustrating than you go to a training, you get so excited about all the things, and then you can't even go back and implement them because someone says, yeah, no, it's not going to work. Right. And because they're set in their ways. All right. Create an incentive program, maybe celebrate wins and small successes. Provide internal training with your team. I think Bradley had mentioned last week, hey, I got some people that are maybe not as tech savvy as the next. Then that could be an opportunity for internal training moments with your people. Encourage certification programs, like get those CEUs. We have to get CEUs. There is a requirement that we get CEUs. I think we have to have 30 continuing education hours every 2 years, right? For the national industry standards. And I think HUD requires us to have 15 each year. So on average, so make sure we're aware of what we need to have so that we can get them. Here's a slide that just talks about maybe some additional training that you can seek out that addresses more on quality control that I think would be helpful for you if you've not taken them. Housing Action Illinois has an on-demand training, Compliance Matters. And then they have a training coming up soon on collecting missing data, the 9902. And then many of you guys know I do provide training for NeighborWorks. I don't teach these classes, but I do know that they have these classes on cracking the code, HUD compliance. So if you've not taken these trainings, please make sure you get into them because they're very important. And then just leveraging technology, as I mentioned earlier, some of those tools that you guys can use to stay up to date and use them to help you be more streamlined. All right, so we have just a few minutes left to talk about the team meetings and collaborations, which I think we can get through here fairly easily. So anything that I see on a slide that I think is pretty self-explanatory, I'll just kind of move over. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure that we understand there's a need and benefit in having regular team meetings. So when I was working with my team, we met every single Monday to debrief what was happening, because I can't be involved in everything as a manager, but I need to hear what's going on. What are your challenges? What are the issues? What's working? What's not working? And that was their moment, one, for me to tell them what was going on in the community and all the outreach and all the programs that were coming up, but two, for them to also give me an update of what was going on from a counseling level or program level. Okay. So it just really improves your communication, enhances coordination among everybody who has different roles within your program. It allows you to solve problems quicker, so they don't linger, and make decisions a lot faster and put you in a place for continuous improvement. When you're conducting meetings, nobody wants to be in a meeting that wastes their time. Can I get an amen on that one? So can I please suggest, number one, have an agenda. Time your items. So in other words, whatever your items are in that agenda, put a time on it. So let's say we're going to talk about a counselor's update, 15 minutes. What's coming up in the next 3 weeks, 10 minutes. So if we have an hour meeting, it's already designated how much time each section of that agenda should take, so that you don't just have this agenda and then you're in there for 2 hours, because that's where time gets wasted. So that'll keep you on track as well as the one maybe leading that meeting, but it'll also show that your people, how much time they also have to give that information that they may have to contribute to in their section. Encourage participation, stay focused, and then have somebody summarize or take notes if you can, if they're comfortable, and you can have something transcribe that through Google or Word, which we talked about. If they're comfortable doing that, that might be an easy way to do that, and then share the notes and make them available. Create collaborative spaces, where they can work together, communicate together. Again, technology, I'm going to put that there. And I think we've already hit those other bullets, just regular team training. Another thing you might think about is, especially if there's an area where somebody in your team wants to elevate or grow, consider a mentorship program. Consider mentoring them in different areas that they might want to grow in, or peer learning from each other. And that empowers, that also, one, as a manager, allows you to see who your leaders are, because that, can help with succession planning and also growth as you grow. But it also can help them learn a little bit faster, because sometimes it's easier to learn from a peer than necessarily a manager. Okay. They might feel a little bit more comfortable working with their colleague on the same level than somebody who they feel like they have to report to. And then have them document and share knowledge of what's working and what's not working. So that might be something you think about, just to kind of help them with that. The last thing here is just the marketing and the outreach. As I mentioned, this is not a marketing workshop, but we do those. Okay. So if you want more on marketing, we'll probably have more training coming up in the next year on that. But strategies for marketing in general, just making sure your branding is consistent, making sure you're utilizing multiple channels where your clients hang out, right? Don't use just the traditional channels that everyone's been using, because the people that you want to serve may not be there. Okay. So go and put that stuff, where, your people are hanging out. Make sure your content is compelling. How many of you guys, when you read the email that I sent out, maybe you got the other one that I sent out this week on the Elevating Your Home Buyer Education program, how many of you guys like, I want that? Oh yeah, I'm leaning in. How many of you felt that, right? Because the way that's written is to understand, one, I know that this is a problem that you guys are feeling and experiencing. And I want you to know that, one, I hear you. And number two, I want you to see what you're going to get by coming in, right? If you get to go into those trainings, I want you to know, before you come out of that training, here's what you'll have in your hand to be able to go out and do. So it's important that you're speaking the language of your customer, and that they are clear, that you know what their struggles are, and you're providing a solution for that struggle. Make sure your information is truthful. It's definitely got to be in compliance with HUD and RESPA. HUD did make some updates in the affirmative action, making sure that we are following. I'm going to skip ahead here for a second, making sure that it's inclusive, that it's targeting audiences that may not otherwise reach out to your organization. So if that's a partnership that you need to make to get in front of those people, or use channels to make sure those marketing pieces are getting in there, making sure you're having a message on that marketing that says, we can make special accommodations if you need it. So if you need an interpreter, if you need special other accommodations, you're putting that in your marketing, so people know that if they need that accommodation, it's right there in front of them. Okay, that's super important. Culturally relevant. Okay, if you're going to be using pictures or things like that, or language, make sure it speaks the language that your audience uses, and make sure it represents the audience that you're trying to represent as well. Okay, we're not excluding one target over the next, but we want to make sure that we're creating diversity, and that we're actually showing people where they feel like, okay, this is for me. Okay, does this make sense? Let me know, yes or no. Okay. And then really try to look at your community partnerships to help you elevate and getting those marketing messages out there in front of audiences. Alternative formats, making sure that you're putting, maybe it's in Braille, large print, maybe it's an audio recording instead of a video recording, maybe it's both, right? So we're thinking about accommodation in multiple ways. Assistive technologies, a screen reader who says, here's what is on the rate on the actual screen. For example, this PowerPoint, all these images are tagged. And so if there was a screen reader, they could read what the image is. They have a description for what that image is, so they can read that screen. That's what a screen reader does. But if we don't tag these images properly, a screen reader wouldn't be able to describe that to somebody who has a disability there. Okay. And then accessible locations, meeting our clients where they are. So if they can't come in our doors, making sure that we have another way to help provide that service, or if it's something we can accommodate, that we are referring them to another HUD approved agency who can make that accommodation. Okay. Woo! I know that was a lot. I definitely feel like I got to work out there. I know we didn't get to talk too much because we only had 1 hour today, my friends. All right, quick things. And I know Vivian has a couple announcements really quick. So I know this is a lot. We'll probably be expanding some more on this in the training. And as we miss some things, put that in our evaluation. Let us know what could we have done different. It was our first time doing this. And I'm so thankful that you guys attended this. And any feedback you can give us to help us elevate it and make it better for you, or just maybe little one-offs, let us know what that looks like. Number two, if you didn't sign up for our upcoming training that I'm doing on elevating your homebuyer education in a new era, I would love for you guys to be there. It is absolutely, I'm telling you, if you want the marketing stuff, I'm doing a lot of stuff on that too, but it is a game changer. I'm going to give you some of my best practices of how to make your stuff look amazing, how to be truly in tune and engage with your audience, and how to go to the next level with your education, especially if you're bored and you just want something new and fresh. And then you're going to get all the materials again. Vivian's going to talk about how we're going to get access to the videos. And Jeff, I do see you have a question. I'm not ignoring you. I'll get you in just 1 second. Hold off. I'm going to let Vivian talk, and then I'll get your question. Okay.
Thank you so much, Laura. So yes, guys, was a speed run version, but this is the bonus that we wanted to give it to you. You are going to receive in 30 minutes the evaluation, the link for the evaluation, the link for the test, which already you have a couple of questions, their answers, so you know already what are the answers for those questions. And you're gonna receive the link for the Google Drive. Once we finish this training, we're gonna record, we are recording it right now. So we are going to put all those links in as a YouTube link, and I will send you the recording to you guys for a short period of time, but you're gonna have it so you can just review with the information and the book and the workbook that you receive. You can just go back and just make sure that you understand everything. We're gonna have another training next week. Well, tomorrow we have a training about natural disasters. I don't know how many people from Illinois are here, but we have like 3 tornadoes yesterday. It was very scary. Actually, I was ready. I was in pajamas when he said, look, the tornado is coming to the lake. Oh my goodness. So immediately get dressed again, get ready, put the cat in the bathroom. My husband was picking up everything that we need, and just we were ready. Okay, we had to go or what? Fortunately, well, it's not fortunate. Unfortunately, it's very sad that, the tornado happens. It went to another, go south. And in that way, we didn't have that one, but it was like a saying, straight coming to you. So going to the lake, so you have to run and be ready. Tomorrow, we're gonna know if you never get prepared for a disaster preparedness, what do you need to do to assist your clients? So we have the training tomorrow. On Tuesday, we're gonna have ethics in housing counseling. And I think this is important because this is also a part of how your quality control, what is the ethics in housing counseling, and that one is with our dear friend Cora Fulmore, so in Diversified Resource Network. So you love those trainings with her, and she is amazing preparing the training. And also we're gonna have next Tuesday, right? 23, 24, and 25. We're gonna have if you want to revamp your homebuyer education, so stop making like it boring and long. You're gonna do it very active and very, very fun, because we're gonna have Laura presenting that training. So it's new, it's something new as well. We wanted to make sure that you don't have your clients are not going to the boring information, because it's a lot of information. We wanted to make it more appealing to them, and in the way they can be homeowners. Okay, so we have scholarships, a few scholarships. Apply for it, or just talk to your managers and say we need the training, and just sign up, because I'm going to close very soon the registrations. And we keep going. We're gonna have another one in November as well about safety. And this is important for you guys as well. How react your clients when you have to give it the bad news? So you need to be sure how you are going to be prepared for it. Cora, thank you. Cora, Laura. I just say Cora and Laura. Laura, thank you. You see all my hearts there. Thank you so very much, because this is it's amazing. I think this training maybe it needs to have 3 days or 4. I don't know. I think 3 days will be good, but longer because it's a lot of good, really good information.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for attending. And please, if you don't have my new version of the Zoom, so at least just put it on the emojis on your chat and say thank you to Laura for all the
Aw, thank
amazing
you.
work that you're doing for our community and
Wow.
for all our agencies.
Thank you. Before you
And
go,
I know
Vivian,
that we have another a question now. So
yeah, no, before we,
I want to see emojis and the questions.
okay, Vivian, so we're gonna send the link for the test right after today. Okay, so definitely be on the lookout for that. You will complete that quiz, and then you will get a certificate of completion. You will get CEUs for this training. And I don't know if we can, I don't know if we bump those up because we had an extra bonus training, but that's okay. You guys will get CEUs for this. So definitely be looking for that. Make sure you do download everything out of that Google Drive. I don't know how long that'll be available to you. So make sure you get all those resources out. All of the tools that I mentioned that I put together for you is in the quality control resources PDF. So look for that. It's in session number 2. It is there. So just download it. You'll see it as a little workbook. It looks very similar to the slide deck that we have here. If you guys need to get a hold of me for any reason, you have a question, something didn't jive, something's still not connecting, here's my email, info@lauraroyer.com. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help you, serve you. You know, I love you so much. I love the work that I get to do with all of you. So I'm here to help you. Jeff, I know you had a question. I apologize. So if you guys need to run out the door, we are officially done. Recording can stop. Jeff has a question, but if you guys have a couple questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes before we run out the door. Thank you so much, guys. Jeff, go ahead. Everybody else, as you're exiting, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you hopefully in a training very, very soon.
Oh yeah, the question was answered. It was about
Oh.
having access to the recording because
Oh,
there are
okay,
some things that
perfect.
may not be, noted. But I do have a statement that I want to bring up and try to, a lot of the things, the schedules, the best practices, the tips and tricks, and all those great things. One of the things I think is also one of the biggest challenges, not even just for the small agencies, but the large agencies, is having someone that actually is a sponge for all this and incorporates it and sticks to it and do it. It's almost like it is a full-time job, actually, and a lot of the not-for-profits, may not necessarily have, that ability to have a full-time staff with, all the benefits of and tax deductions and all that. So most of them are part-time, which is one of the things we find here, but still there are bits and pieces, and it's a step, take one baby step at a time to get there, like you mentioned. So, because I've been kind of touting a lot of the practices that are presented here to my agency, and it's a bit of a challenge, because then you have some that are on a different intelligence level that's able to grasp it and then move with it, and then others, may do more than just that one function, and it's not really part in piece of their DNA to be, I guess is the best way to do it, to be on top of the stuff and implement it and have a hunger and an intensity to do. So
yeah,
it's something. Yeah.
Small wins. That's what you have to aim for. I understand. I hear your pain. Trust me. I hear this a lot, trying to get other people to implement a lot of these changes. You're right. It can be very challenging. We're going to continue to do this kind of work, and hopefully more and more of our higher level people will be on these trainings and hopefully support you in those journeys. Cause I agree. I know it is a
definitely
challenge.
pumped me up. So
Good. I'm glad. Yay. I'm so excited. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Ardelia.
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually missed how we would receive the recordings. Did you say that?
Vivian is going to send out the links,
Okay.
post the training. So you'll be getting that. Vivian, is that correct? You're going to send out the links for each one of them, correct?
Yes. The thing is, okay, we want to send you one email.
Yeah.
So now we're going to send you the email with the links that normally do with the evaluation and the test and the resources. Once we finish this training, this session, I'm going to close it up and I'm going to transform like in the YouTube video. So in that way, I can collect the 3 sessions, the 2 sessions that you attended last week, and this one. So I will send you the links for section 1, section 2, section, and the bonus session. So you're gonna have one email with the sessions. But yeah, I need
Okay.
time because we haven't closed this one yet.
I
But
understand.
I promise that I'm gonna send you to all of you, so you're gonna have access, you're gonna review your resources, and in that way, you're gonna just check the videos as well. Yes. This is something that I suppose not doing it because we usually do that one for report purposes only, but I'm going to do it. I'm gonna make an exception and I'm gonna do it with you guys because you need information. It's a lot of good information. So I think you can digest it more, everything and have your agencies in a very good, very, very, very good quality control. Your agencies, when has come in and has says, oh, we're gonna have a hard review, you say, come over now. We have everything, we covered. It's what I
got
wanted that
this.
you do. You don't need
Awesome.
to be afraid. You just need to, every time, if you just have this one, and remember, in October, we're gonna start a new fiscal year. So if
Right.
you start working and put right now, everything, like your process and procedures, how you're going to work and operate your agency, when HUD is coming is fine because all your files are correct. Everything is in place. And also you can present even evaluation that people is happy with the services
Right.
that you provide. So this is what HUD wants to see, that you are, you're doing good.
Thank you.
Important. Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question. Guys, thank you so very much for being here. I'm gonna close it up because in the way I can just start doing the recording, right?
Yep.
I see you. I hope I can see you for next trainings. Go visit my website or just apply for the scholarships. David, okay, Jeff, thank you so much for all your
Yes, thank
support, Jeff, because you're
Yes.
asking amazing questions and comments. And Maria, congratulations again. Sarah, I'll see you soon. April, I see you too. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love see you guys. I remember I put the pictures also on the
Yeah, I
Google
saw it on
Drive. So
Google
you
Drive.
have the pictures for you guys. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Vivian, do you need me to